types of productions.
It was a layered operation that achieved many objectives, but it facilitated the growth of the state as well. And it facilitated that path of the dystopian nightmare, and the violation of our inherent rights. So that was an inherent example of the federal government's abuse of power.
Oh, Father, tell me, do we get what we deserve? Oh, we get what we deserve.
Holy cow. About a third of the building has been blown away.
And way down we go. Oh, way down we go. Say way down we go. And way down we go. Oh, 'cause they will run you down to the dark. Yeah, then they will run you down till you fall. Oh, and they will run you down till you go. Yeah, till you can't crawl no more.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Jose Galison. Welcome to another No Way Jose. Today we are going to be diving a little bit into some newly released research from Dr. Wendy Painting, who wrote this great book, Aberration in the Heartland of the Real, The Secret Lives of Timothy McVeigh. That's probably, in my opinion, the best, if not one of the best, Oklahoma City bombing books there is out there, so I highly do recommend it. And with any new research from Dr. Wendy Painting, you kind of got to go over it if you want to be someone who is a OKC head. So with that, we will be digging into that research. This is going to be a multiple-part series, and I'll explain more. But before we get into that, I do want to take a moment to remind you guys that today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Nadeau Shave Co. If you're tired of that razor burn, the irritation, and the ingrown hairs that can come from those multi-blade cartridges, this is the way to go. Nadeau Shave Co. Go back to the single-blade safety razor. Shave like your grandpa used to. I don't know why we ever went to the multi-blades. I mean, this really is, when you really sit down and think about it, there's really no advantage for the multi-blades. These single blades are better in every way. Gives you a smoother shave. It is better for your skin. You're dragging one blade across your face as opposed to multiple. It's a lot better on your wallet. It's $75 the first year. After that, you're just buying the razors, and you get 100 blades for the first year, so it really depends on how long that's going to last you. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer, really. I mean, and also on top of that, you're getting a 10% discount if you use Jose at checkout and let them know I sent you, so it's even cheaper than I mentioned before. And then, as if that wasn't enough, this is a COVID mandate refusing company. So just assuming, you're watching this show, I'm going to, typically speaking, that's going to be my my audience, people that's going to be their values. So, I mean, this is a razor company that aligns with your values too. So it's not some faceless corporation that hates you. So, hey, kind of in every single which way, it's the no-brainer. So go to NadeauShaveCo.com, use Jose at checkout, let them know I sent you. And with that, let's get back into it. All right, we're going to be getting into this, or actually not this, but a series of threads that were put out by, as I said before, Dr. Wendy Painting. She put it out on her Twitter account, which is at birdwendy2. Also I forget which one's the handle and which one's the name. I think the handle's the at, so her at is at birdwendy2, and then her name or whatever is real aberration on there. So maybe a little bit harder to find because it's not her name, Wendy Painting. It's something different. So you can find it there, but she's been putting out a series of threads. I believe she said at one point she thought it might be in the realm of 19. They're still ongoing, so we'll see how many there are by the end of this. But this is the first one we'll be going into. But we're literally basically just going to do a live reading of these is the plan. The reasoning being is because this is newer research, so I haven't really had the time to process it. So we're just going to kind of just present it as was meant to be presented by Wendy. So we'll be going through this. I also, because we're kind of like so in the weeds on Oklahoma City bombing information here, I do want to let you guys know, just kind of like I will be providing minimal commentary throughout. Trying to keep it somewhat minimal. We'll see. Sometimes I'm apt to ramble. So, like I said, minimal. Trying not to taint the source here or provide too much speculation or anything along the lines. I mean, obviously, I'll provide probably a little bit as I go. I'll try to distinguish my best when it's my words and when it's Dr. Wendy Painting's words. Obviously, you can always go see for specifically when it's what's my words and what's hers. I will be putting the link for each one of the threads in the video description, so you can go then find it yourself. Maybe even do a solid, put a little like and a retweet, something along those lines. Help spread the word of this sort of information. Whoever it's coming from, hey, let's spread the word on Oklahoma City bombing lore. But as I was kind of driving out earlier, this is very much, this is like, this isn't 101. This is advanced OKC stuff. So I'm going to be kind of with my commentary, not holding hands so much because, come on, we're in the weeds here. If you are going to be getting into what may end up being a 19-part series on newly released information on the Oklahoma City bombing, and kind of going into the weeds of it, yeah, you're let's be real, you're deep in the lore. If you're someone just jumping in as a 101, I don't know what you're doing, but hey, weird introduction to Oklahoma City bombing. But I'm going to be probably putting this in the playlist. So for those who do, like if you are hopping in here as your first go around in the Oklahoma City bombing stuff, maybe consider taking it back to 101 and going maybe to like part 1 of my Oklahoma City bombing series and working your way through that entire playlist. Before you get here. I've had a lot of other content before now, so maybe build up your knowledge base before we get in the weeds here. But this is where we're starting. This is where we're getting into. So like I said, basically just live reading, doing my best to try to distinguish when it's my words, when it's hers. But the links will be in the video description. So go check it for yourself. Go leave a like. Go leave a retweet. Also, this will not be tailored in any way, shape, or form for beginners. So, all caveats aside, we're getting into it. I will not be doing this caveat for future episodes. So, with that, let's go ahead and get right into it. So, starting off from the jump, Richard Van Hazel, this is obviously in Wendy's words now, had some startling things to say about Timothy McVeigh and his relationship to Jack Oliphant and a group of men in the paramilitary background. And Wendy provides here a picture of Van Hazel. I will go one more caveat. I will let you guys know this is probably going to be fairly visually oriented, but I'll do my best to help out the audio. People just go, but obviously with something like, hey, here's this so-and-so, I don't know I can't really describe him too well to you. This guy kind of looks like an older, generic white dude. I don't really need to say to that. But yes, obviously if you want to get the full experience, go watch this over on the YouTube channel. I mean, you can also go check it out on the audio later if you want. So it's up to you. But you'll get probably more of experience from the visual. So, or if you go on over to Wendy's thing. Oh, one more caveat. Obviously, you can jump ahead. You can jump ahead of these threads if you're I'm on part. This is part 1. I think she's somewhere in the 5 or 6 realm right now. So go dig in. By the time this goes public, because of the paywall nature of this show, there'll be even more. So go dig in, go into them, get ahead of this. Heck, you can even be in here asking questions later, and I can try to do my best. And maybe we might even have a certain special guest later. No promises, just saying. Maybe we can have other people that can answer some of those questions, because I don't know, some of this in the weeds stuff I'm not gonna be able to. So a lot of these realms that we're kind of going into aren't really my forte of the Oklahoma City bombing, anyways. Not that I consider myself an expert per se, but either way. All right, another photo here. This is Jack Oliphant, so you guys can get an idea of what he looks like. Older guy with a cowboy hat, and then he clearly has these pins that look like kind of a military insignia pins, like kind of maybe like a pair of jumpers, and I forget, those are called like your MOS badges, I believe, if I recall correctly, from Air Force. Yeah, I was really bad. I didn't really devour the all the blue information so well. But I'm pretty sure, yeah, those were the MOS badges. Van Hazel served 7 years in prison for his part in the Committee of the States conspiracy. You will see this maybe some other times later in this thread being referred to as COS, just so you guys know. Convicted in 1987 along with Colonel William Potter Gale and others for conspiring to kill IRS agents and a federal judge, their arrests were the result of Operation Clean Sweep a multi-agency, multi-state investigation of far-right leaders and a precursor to PATCON. As I said, my words now, I do want to focus on the multi-agency, multi-state investigation and then precursor to PATCON. I do try to hone in on that when I can. I think I'm of the presumption that PATCON may be a little bit more multi-agency than just straight up FBI. So just kind of throwing that out there, obviously. She shares here a excerpt from something. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it'll give us clear indication later what's an excerpt from. But let's read this to get clear indications. This just goes more into the specifics. So this is where she got it from. Actually, a lot of these I probably won't read some of these unless it's specific. This is just kind of, I think, her source that she's kind of providing. It shows in here, Committee of the States, or considered by the FBI to be extreme right-wing, white supremacist paramilitary organization. Talking about clean sweep. So this is just kind of what she's using to just show her work. I keep saying one more thing. I do want to let you go know, obviously all this isn't new in the sense of it being new, but this is new research in the sense, I mean, some of it I'm sure will be straight up new, but some of it may be stuff that's either unearthed or pieced together in a new light or something, but so some of it will probably be new as we go through. So just letting you guys know this, because she's just rehashing information here. So then she shows more kind of upholding it here. Unlike PATCON, however, clean sweep would lead to numerous arrests and trials, including those of the Arizona Patriots and defendants in the sedition trials, including Richard Butler, head of Aryan Nations, and Louis Beam. This is, for example, with some of these articles, I will say, I may read some of them as we go through if I feel like they are super pertinent to read. This might be where you guys will get more out of it if you go check this out on your own, because then you can go dig into these articles she attaches, but she has an article attached here. Van Hazel, at one time described as a leader of the Arizona Patriots, was closely associated with Jack Oliphant and Richard Butler and had been a featured speaker at Aryan Nations. More excerpts provided here that you can go dig in on your own to get into the specifics. Now, this one I will read since this is, I think, a little bit more. It says, knowing the similarities between California-based Committee of the States and the Arizona chapter, Seymour pointed out the similar compact had been signed on July 4th, 1984 at Manassa Ranch in Mariposa and recorded the county recorder's office. The three Arizona signatories on the California compact were Richard Van Hazel, listed in court documents as a mafiosa enforcer for the unorganized militia and a close friend to Arizona Patriot Jack Maxwell Oliphant, Norman F. Kuman, a former publisher of the Prescott News and subsequent consultant to the Arizona Patriot, a bulletin put out by the Arizona Patriots, and Terry B. McDaniel, a member of the Arizona Patriots in northern Arizona. Says Richard Parker argued the court that Van Hazel was the most volatile and dangerous member of the group and should receive at least the amount of prison time that Mike McRae received, 7 years. Parker also emphasized that Van Hazel had shown no remorse for his crimes and continued to challenge the authority of the court. He was sentenced to 7 years in prison and remanded to the Arizona Correctional Facility, where he began serving his sentence immediately. All right, not gonna let me see. All right, let me see. Scrolling through. Here's another one. Federal trial begins for Mariposa tax protesters. So we can get in the weeds a little bit here. I'll read this one to you guys. It says, Las Vegas, Nevada, 6 members of a paramilitary tax protester group led by a Mariposa man went on trial in U.S. District Court Tuesday, charged with sending death threats to IRS officials and judges in Nevada and California. So reading a lot of these, as we go through to kind of give a little more context, so we can kind of flesh out more of the specifics here. As I said, I probably won't read all of these, only if I have an inkling that there might be further context that's relevant. But you can always go, I might miss stuff as I go, so go check out the thread for full context. Reputed leader of the group, William P. Gale, was seated in a wheelchair and had trouble breathing as a federal judge spent the morning questioning potential jurors. Gale's attorney, Tom Petero, said the 71-year-old defendant suffers from emphysema and was released from a California hospital Thursday. Security in the federal courthouse was heightened as jury selection began for members of the group, known as the Committee of the States. A jury of 5 men and 9 women was selected Tuesday afternoon. Gale heads the Mariposa-based Identity Church, which is closely connected to a number of white supremacist organizations. He was an aide to General Douglas MacArthur during the Philippines campaign of World War II and is considered an expert in guerrilla warfare. The 6 were arrested in California, Nevada, and Arizona last October and charged with conspiracy to threaten IRS agents and judges in Nevada and California. The defendants are Gale, Richard Van Hazel, Patrick McRae, George McRae, Gary Dolphin, and Fortunato Perino of Mariposa. Perino, former L.A. County Sheriff's deputy, is considered Gale's chief assistant in the Identity Church. Officials said the church and its grounds were used last year for a paramilitary training course which the defendants attended. Nevada District Judge Earl White Jr. of Las Vegas was among those allegedly threatened by the group. He received a constructive notice from the Committee of the States threatening him with a death penalty if he interfered with members of the committee, authorities said. Prospective jurors were asked by U.S. District Judge Lloyd George whether they'd be disturbed if negative remarks were made during the trial about Jews, Catholics, or Mormons. Assistant U.S. Attorney Rick Pocker said at the October 86 arraignment of the 6th that they did not recognize the legitimacy of the IRS, its agents, or federal income tax statutes. These men belong to an elaborate conspiracy which has made many threats against federal agents, Pocker said. They hold the fundamental precept that the government is an unlawful government. They call the U.S. government the Zionist occupied or occupational government. Oh, I always thought it was occupied, but all right, they're calling it the Zionist occupational government here, which I find that weird. I always thought it was occupied. But all right, let's move on. Oops, what the hell just happened here? All right, well, it kicked me back. Sorry, let me get back to my place. I don't know why I did that. Sorry. Give me a second. There we go. All right. What the fuck? I'm sorry. All right, tax protester. All right, more on the trial. All right, we're not going to keep reading all these. These kind of just more on the trial. For more background, see this is Committee of the States Inside the Radical Right by Sherry Seymour. Okay, that's the one that she's pulling all these different excerpts from, I believe. Although some of these do look like are newspaper clippings, but some of these were probably pulled from that as well. So background, she said, Committee of the States, Inside the Radical Right. As noted in an earlier thread, Sherry Seymour had been asked by Garby Leon, a director of development at Joel Silver Productions in Burbank, California, to collaborate on a magazine article with his friend and newspaper staff reporter for a cover story on the rise of the militias. Leon was the subject of a chapter in Seymour's book, The Last Circle. It's called Last Circle, Danny Casallero's investigation into the Octopus and the Promise software scandal by Sherry Seymour. So we'll read this one real quick. So Garby Leon, director of development at Joel Silver Productions at Warner Brothers Studios in Burbank, California, had been investigating the death of Paul Wiltshire, Danny Casallero, and others associated with the Octopus story. On July 14th, 1993, Garby wrote a letter to the U.S. Attorney General to influence her to investigate the death of Paul Wiltshire, a Washington, D.C. attorney who had been investigating the October surprise incident based on the claims of his client, Gunther Karl Russbacher. On or about May 21st, 1993, attorney Paul Wiltshire had hand-delivered a letter to the Department of Justice claiming holdover DOJ employees from the Reagan-Bush era were responsible for a number of government cover-ups, unbeknownst to Attorney General and President Clinton. The 100-page letter was addressed to Janet Reno. On or about June 11th, Wiltshire was interviewed by the public relations man Carl Stein, formerly of NBC, regarding the contents of the letter. Later, after days of not hearing from him, worried friends contacted the police. He went to Wiltshire's apartment on June 23rd. His decomposing body was found propped on a toilet. Sarah McClendon, a White House correspondent and close friend of Paul Wiltshire, wrote in her Washington report on July 4th, 1993, entitled Death of a Friend, that Wiltshire believed Gunther Russbacher to be a political prisoner. That Russbacher was being prosecuted because he allegedly flew former President George Bush to Paris to meet with leading Iranians to make a deal to supply Iran with weapons in exchange for that government keeping the 52 American hostages until after the November election so that former President Jimmy Carter would not get a boost by bringing home the American citizens held there. Instead, the deal was that the hostages would be delivered to Ronald Reagan as soon as Reagan was inaugurated in 1981, wrote McClendon. Wiltshire was working daily for Russbacher. Wiltshire wanted to ask the new Attorney General, Janet Reno, to grant immunity from prosecution to Russbacher so that he might testify to the government about the going-ons inside of the CIA. McClendon had called local police for 24 hours, imploring them to check up on Wiltshire. Finally, they found he had been dead for several days. That's the end of that one. All right, 1 second. All right. Seymour agreed to the suggested collaboration because she had written Committee of the States and would reestablish contact with the militia/posse comitatus characters in her first book. While researching and conducting interviews for the Plan magazine article about the militia movement, the OKC bombing occurred. The magazine canceled the militia story and jumped over the coverage of the Oklahoma City bombing story. Soon after, Seymour, a licensed private detective, was commissioned to investigate the OKCB. What she learned was so startling that she continued her investigation after the commission ended with the intent of completing a book about the subject. Years later, Seymour's 94-year-old mother became ill and moved in with her, and Seymour, now caring for her mother full-time, gave her OKC bombing research files for me to be used in my second book. On March 13th, 1997, Cherry Seymour met with Richard Van Hazel in Phoenix, Arizona. McVeigh said Van Hazel was a member of the most, in quotes, the most intensive patriotic organization in America today, unquote, and had trained with members of the Arizona Patriots and others involved in the underground, including Jack Oliphant at 2 locations. The first was Gunsite Ranch in Arizona, sometimes described as a Harvard of shooting schools, where militia members, mercenaries, and military and law enforcement paid large sums of money to take courses. So, all right, so here you go. See, here's just a picture of this. Kind of shows a bit on the Gunsite here. It says Jeff Cooper's API/Gunsite now offering practical rifle instruction. It says beginning 1 January 1979, Gunsite owned, operated, and directed by Jeff Cooper is offering practical rifle training, a field that has long been regarded, even by the military, as a mixture of voodoo and alchemy. It actually is a highly diverse and relevant field of weaponry, and is a must for anyone who wishes to learn the safe, practical, efficient use of the rifle. It took Jeff 20 years to make the world. Okay, yeah, it's just kind of, obviously, it's just a advertisement out there for the rifle school, or the gun school, or whatever you want to call it. Going on, here's Jeff Cooper. Why does it keep doing this? Sorry, it keeps glitching out, and it keeps moving me into some other part of the thread. Give me a second while I try to find my spot again. All right, Jeff Cooper says he watches the bushes that move is what it is. So here's a picture of him. So Chuck Taylor is Cooper's chief instructor. So it's just kind of, here's a photo of the guy. All right, let's keep moving. Guns are his business. Says, in circles where the gun is king, Jeff Cooper is crown prince. An armed society is a polite society, tells the subjects, and his company people are very polite indeed. The former U.S. Marine Colonel, a tanned Fit 60, entertains visitors by cocking his Colt 45 automatic pistol and shooting berries off the juniper bushes in his 200-acre backyard. There are people in America who have never seen a real gun, he complained. This is the first time in U.S. history that heads of families have not been to Uncle Sam's trade school, referring to the absence of full military mobilization since World War II. To make up for Uncle Sam's shortfalls, Cooper runs the American Pistol Institute and at his own Gunsite Ranch in northern Arizona. Cooper's ranch, tucked away in the corner of an isolated high desert valley, is a mecca for those who inspire to shoot the hill. All right, so it's just more kind of showing who this guy that has the Gunsite, all that. You can go see more about this in I Am Soldier of Fortune, Dancing with Devils by Lieutenant Colonel Robert K. Brown. The second was a paramilitary camp in Texas, the name of which Van Hazel disclosed. Van Hazel said that the actual plot to bomb the Murrah was hatched at this Texas location in 92, and that McVeigh was an outcropping of that. McVeigh, he said, had even been photographed at Gunsite, and before the Oklahoma City bombing, Oliphant had expressed consternation about McVeigh, whom he said was attracting BATF agents like a magnet, unquote. leading the Arizona Patriots and others in the right-wing government or underground to have, quote, concerns about his future, unquote, which I found this particularly interesting when I was reading this through the other day. Yeah, that's interesting. Attracting BATF agents like a magnet. This is kind of what I was getting at a little bit earlier with my point that I was getting at, that like, I think maybe there's a little bit more of a multi-agency component to something like a PATCON. Obviously, that could also just mean that he's just kind of like even if he was a provocateur or a provocateur in the sense of like a fed something or other, or even just like he could even just be a good old boy they're saying is going too far. Either way, it could just mean he's attracting feds. So that, like, you know, kind of like he's going too far type deal. So either, but it's obviously that I know that's interesting. So here's a supplemental statement of Bernard J. Sapor, special agent for the ATF. It says this statement relates to information received concerning subject Timothy McVeigh on April 25th, 1995. Information was received. Yeah, right. That's right. Anyway, yeah, okay. Was received by Al Shear regarding suspect Timothy McVeigh. Al Shear is a criminal investigator for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, Phoenix, Arizona, and is retired Phoenix police detective, an expert in hate crimes, white supremacy, and Nazi crimes. He currently investigates hate crime for MCAO. Al Shear related that in September 93, he attended a gun show in Phoenix, Arizona, and had a conversation with a white male who was selling a shoulder-launched flare gun. At the time ATF was contacted, and information about the flare gun was discussed with FTB. A determination was made that the device was not in violation of GCA or NFA. Shearer stated the subject had copies of a news article about the Randy Weaver, Idaho case, and that at the end of the article it listed the name and home address of the FBI sniper that shot Vicky Weaver. The subject told Shearer that if he was ever in Virginia that he should visit the FBI sniper. The subject was also selling a military chemical suit type used in Desert Storm. The subject was also wearing a baseball cap that had the letters BATF on the front with bullet holes through the letters. The subject stated the flare gun could be converted to fire exploding rockets, but would not further elaborate. Shearer asked the subject what would be the purpose of such a device, and the subject responded, to shoot down ATF helicopters. The subject advertised the device in the Spotlight, a survivalist newspaper. The address listed was Tim Tuttle, which for those who know, that's commonly used pseudonym. 1711 Stockton Hill, Box 206, Kingman, Arizona. This address is the same utilized by subject McVeigh in Kingman, Arizona. Al Shearer advised ATF Special Agent Zapor that after viewing McVeigh on television, he believes that McVeigh is the same subject from the gun show in 93. On that same date, a KSAR containing this information was forwarded through channels. All right. At that point, Van Hazel said something even more startling to Seymour, claiming to have been in a motel room when McVeigh made a call to a well-known white supremacist organization and discussed the logistics of renting a moving truck without a credit card. If you won't, I mean, obvious things are obvious. I emphasize that for a reason. Van Hazel continued saying that the composition of the Ryder bomb had been altered the evening before the Oklahoma City bombing, although he did not say how he knew this or if McVeigh had been aware of it. Van Hazel had even more to say, but as the claims mentioned above, that this thread series, of which this is part 1, will in part explore. So it says right here, kidnap attempt foiled. Witness was targeted from Arizona case. 2 Arizona men who came to Rochester Hills last week, apparently to kill a witness in an Arizona embezzlement trial, were chased away by the intended victim's shotgun-wielding brother and later arrested by Oakland County Sheriff's deputies, authorities said Tuesday. The duo had been sent to kidnap Gary Canoe, a witness in an Arizona embezzlement case, and they were armed to the hilt. A rolling arsenal, said John O'Brien, chief deputy Oakland prosecutor. The court testimony of Canoe, formerly Phoenix, lightly triggered Friday's kidnapping attempt, he said. Arraigned Tuesday in Rochester Hills 52-3 District Court were Richard Van Hazel, 58, and Troy Coe, both of Phoenix. Van Hazel was charged with attempted kidnapping, possession of a firearm while committing a felony, and carrying a concealed weapon, a loaded pistol, officials said. Coe faces the same 3 charges plus a 4th, possession of loaded firearms inside a vehicle in a non-hunting area. He had 4 loaded rifles and a double-sided dagger, O'Brien said. The pair also had a typewritten note suggesting that Mr. Canoe had offered false testimony intimating that he was going to commit suicide because of his unsettled feelings. The signature line was blank. Our investigation indicates they plan to force Canoe to sign this note. Oh, shit. Okay, so they were basically probably going to off him with a fake suicide note. Obviously, that's what it looks like, at least. On Tuesday, the pair were being held in the Oakland County Jail, facing charges that could bring a maximum of 7 years in prison. Upon conviction, officials said. According to Sheriff's Detective Travis Dick, Van Hazel appeared Friday night on Canoe's driveway, presenting himself as a U.S. Marshal and identifying Mr. Canoe by name. Van Hazel displayed a 1972 Reserve Police ID card from Flagstaff, Arizona, where he was once a reserve officer. He told Canoe, "Threats have been made on your life, and we've come to take you into protective custody." But something seemed amiss to Canoe, who made an excuse to go inside. He then called police while his father went out to stall Van Hazel. Shortly afterward, Canoe's brother appeared with a shotgun. Hearing sirens, the would-be kidnappers tried to drive away, then were surrounded by 4 squad cars. The forceful police response probably kept the incident from being a bloodbath, Dick said. Well, that's interesting. Kidnapped suspect had ties to militia. I mean, we already knew these guys had ties to militias. After her meeting with Van Hazel, Louis Beam confirmed to Seymour that Oliphant had trained at Gunsite. In fact, both Beam and Bruce Campbell said they knew Lieutenant Colonel Jeff Cooper, who had established and operated Gunsite. All right, so we're showing all these people know everybody. She shows here military advising assistance from mercenaries through privatization, 1815 to 2007, edited by Donald Stoker. And then I'm assuming the implication of showing that is that these excerpts below are from it, I would assume. Or so. All right, let's read these real quick. All right. I'm just going to read the highlighted portions. So I'm going to assume it's important. First, since the 1970s, the U.S. Armed Forces have had a wide array of small domestic private companies for training in a variety of tactical skills ranging from martial arts, skydiving, and advanced driving skills to explosives handling and marksmanship. Gunsite provides us with an early example. Originally established in 1976 by a retired U.S. lieutenant and colonel as one of the first professional shooting skills for civilian marksmanship in the U.S., and immediately began receiving telephone inquiries from various military and police units interested in firearms training. Companies such as Gunsite, whose armories allowed them to offer courses familiarizing U.S. soldiers with Soviet and other foreign weapons, became popular with elite military units deploying to regions where these weapons would be commonplace on the battlefield. Similarly, high-end professional driving. As these training relationships matured, a number of civilian driving schools began incorporating shooting ranges into their driving course properties. And offering shooting instruction at the behest of their government clients. During the 1980s, small companies offering tactical fighting courses proliferated throughout the United States as the personal reputations of individual instructors of the quality of the company's training facilities spread through the elite forces community via word of mouth. A number of these firms transitioned their core business from the civilian to the military sector. All right. Both SAIC and Gunsite provide armed forces training personnel from a number of militaries around the world. So they're providing. It seems like the crux here is that they're providing a lot of different types of training for military members as well. Gunsite, in comparison, operates a professional shooting facility based in Arizona, employing a few dozen instructors who are sporadically contracted to teach small elite forces units in tactical shooting techniques. All right, cool. Interesting, until his death, McVeigh was obsessed with and spoke often about a book Cooper had written. Okay, so now we're coming back to this Cooper guy, the guy who set up this Gunsite place that all these militia members and elite military units seem to be using, or military and cops in general. Which, I mean, to be frank, I mean, that's kind of semi-common-ish from my understanding. I've never been a big range guy, but I've gone to a few ranges here and there. But it's my understanding it's not uncommon. Cops, military, I mean, that's like ranges kind of a, they might, in their off time do such things or you gather. I mean, it's not that crazy. I mean, those are professions, but obviously like training elite units. Okay, that's getting a little bit more spooky. So, all right, here's more. Let me see, what is this? Tim characterizes, here's an excerpt from something, I'm assuming maybe from that book, or actually something else. Tim characterizes himself as ranging from extra cautious to paranoid. To describe himself more, he referred to a book that has highly influenced his values and morals, To Ride, Shoot Straight, and Speak the Truth by Jeff Cooper. Cooper talks about the need to have a combat mindset, which Tim also described as situational awareness. This mindset tends towards paranoia in Tim's context, where guns, cash, and anti-government expression requires one to be vigilant. The combat mindset and situational awareness, I will say from I do want to say both of those, especially the latter, not so much the former as the latter. Those were like the huge keywords when I was in the military. So like situational awareness. So I mean, that's just anecdotal. I mean, I don't know if that's like I don't know. The idea that they're still using that, I mean, it's from like the 90s this is happening, so I don't know. Maybe these terms just stick around. Maybe meaningless. I don't even know why I'm providing that comment here. I'm just telling you guys. I was just like, oh, geez, that's kind of weird because that's like the buzzword. Like that was like probably one of the most buzzwords I heard all the time in basic training. Situational awareness. This mindset tends towards paranoia in Tim's context, where guns, cash, and anti-government expression require one to be vigilant. He said that he recognized that he is sometimes paranoid, such as when he asserts matters to people as true, that he is not checked out, but that he is generally not paranoid. Some things that we might consider as paranoid have to do with his knowledge of modern technology, which he says none of us has because we, I assume he means Steve and I, are in the Edsel generation, whatever the hell that means. All right, what's this? All right, let's keep going. All right, here is more. What is this? More stuff from Gunsite showing pictures of the classes and stuff that they offer. That same month, in March 97, Seymour went to Elohim City and had a lengthy discussion with Robert Millar, which she detailed in the memo. She asked if the revolution had begun at the 92 Estes Park meeting, a claim often repeated by journalists and academics. Here's some pictures. These are pretty neat. So this is kind of why I was making an emphasis about why it really matters. You might get more of the visual component. There's going to be a lot of cool photos for the Oklahoma City people out there. The Oklahoma City bombing, heads, whatever term we want to use here. OKC bombing nerds. I don't know. But there's a lot of cool photos that she's put together in these threads, and probably a lot of stuff that I'd say the majority of I've never seen before. So pretty cool. So here's one, a photo, one of the signs from Elohim City. It says Elohim City personnel only. Here's another photo of what looks like Elohim City. Kind of almost looks like you're coming up into a trailer park type thing. Here's a photo of I presume Millar. Amazingly, Millar said it begun not at the Estes Park meeting, but another meeting held elsewhere. The location he named was the paramilitary camp in Texas, where Van Hazel said McVeigh trained and where the bombing plot was hatched. When Seymour pressed Millar for further details about this meeting, though, Millar clammed up. Here's a business card for Dr. Millar for Elohim City here. Best of today with a promise for tomorrow. A division of Elohim Incorporated, a city of the universe. All right. On March 21st, 1997, Sherry Seymour interviewed Dennis Mahon. Now that is quite the name, but I'm as I said before, not holding you guys' hands, so I'm assuming you know your stuff, so you know why that matters. That's the guy that purportedly went to go visit the Murrah Federal Building and other federal buildings with Strassmeyer and Carol Howe. So, yeah. Mahon made several interesting and intriguing statements about a number of topics, including, but not limited to, his activities in Germany, the Lady Godiva strip club incident, and previous illegal acts he'd committed, as well as various people, including, also not limited to, Johnny Bangirter, Kirk Lyons, Louis Beam, Strassmeyer, Howe, the Ward brothers, and J.D. Cash. Here's another photo. There's a photo of Dennis Mahon here with one of the, almost looks like kind of what you'd think of like one of the ARA masks. Mahon said he had reason to believe that McVeigh had stayed in his trailer at Elohim City because he found something in his trailer which had belonged to McVeigh. However, Mahon continued, he had destroyed it because it could have got me 5 to 10 years. He refused to give further details about it until McVeigh's then upcoming trial had concluded. Notable for this thread, however, was Mahon's response when Seymour asked if he'd heard of the 2 locations Van Hazel said McVeigh had trained at with others in the underground. She did not disclose to Mahon what Van Hazel had told her, nor did she bring up Jack Oliphant. She simply threw out the names of the 2 locations to Mahon, who immediately associated these with Oliphant and added, he had a mountain he was doing some training at. Mahon said he was, quote, sure that Tim met with Oliphant many times, unquote, and that he, Mahon, had corresponded with Oliphant as well. Mahon would say something similar to reporters years later. Now, Oliphant is kind of a very spooky character. I believe he even makes claims of glowiness to some degree. I forget the specifics. Maybe this will come up in the thread later. So this is, in past times, I know this has been a thing. Many researchers have looked for connections for Oliphant and McVeigh. They're there, but they're kind of loose. So, making that a little bit tighter, it seems what we're doing here now. It's always been rumors that they were super close. Once again, non-area is my forte particularly, so maybe we'll see. Maybe this will come up with a thread later. Finally, I want to draw attention to a statement made by someone we'll call JR for now. JR, an unindicted member of the COS conspiracy, remember I told you that'd be the acronym used later, is mentioned in discovery documents about the case and a close friend of Van Hazel and Beam, among others. He was a retired law enforcement officer in L.A., now headed a CIA extraction team in Latin America, trained military SWAT members, and trained with Delta Force and other special forces units near Reno, Nevada. All right, let's see what we hear about this JR guy. Before the OKC bombing, during a discussion about COS, JR told Seymour that a man named Robert Jacks had worked as an undercover FBI informant during Operation Clean Sweep. Now that, I think, is going to be where we leave you guys today. I mean, let's go through kind of, this is basically the end of the thread. There's more, she's wrapping it up, but I mean, so far as the substance, that seems at the end of it. So rate it when we're about to get juicy. So you guys may want to definitely pop in for the next one. For the patrons, I plan on knocking out the next one tomorrow, so you'll get it real soon. For all the poors out there, the non-supporting members, sorry, you'll probably have to wait at least a week for the next one. So it is what it is, but just let you know, you have it right now if you chip in a buck. But let's finish this thread just to give it its due. So from Wendy says, this completes part 1 of a thread series that will ultimately be about 10 to 15 parts. I don't know where I got 19. I swear I said 19 earlier. Where did I get 19 from? All right. There will be about 10 to 15 parts be posted over the next few days and into next week, in which I will begin to examine what, if anything, supports the claims outlined above. To do so, I will construct a chronology drawing primarily from my own files, through which a nexus will emerge detailing the relationships of some well-known and not so well-known characters to each other and directly or tangentially to McVeigh. She says, I respectfully ask that you hold off asking questions until I finish posting all the threads in the series, so as I anticipate, a number of them are likely to be addressed in the remaining sections. So, all right. Well, I think that's going to conclude that for today. I thought it'd take a little bit longer on that one, but hey, we knocked it out quicker than I thought. Hopefully, maybe as I go through future ones, it's a little smoother. I don't think I've done an episode of this format. This is kind of similar to my morning show. I had intended on doing these like the morning show first. Usually the morning show, for those who don't watch that and just only watch, say, this sort of content, a lot of times I'll do live readings on there, and I had intended on doing that. Usually we'll do save that for like the last 30 minutes of the show or so. Depending on the size of the article, I might break it up into parts. And so that's kind of what I was planning on doing. I didn't catch the end of this where it said 10 to 15 parts initially. So I'd only seen the one thread. And I was like, oh, cool. So we'd and then I found out, oh my God, this is a mammoth thread. And then saw later, 10 to 15. Oh my goodness, this is not intended for the morning stream. But I kind of wanted to, so we could kind of go through it in this manner. It's a little bit different when we have it in the stream format, when we have other people here joining in. But I think it'll be a little bit smoother next time. I'll try to. Usually for the morning show, I don't pre-read these. That way, it's more of a reaction type thing. But I'll try to pre-read these ones, so I'm a little bit more prepared, and so I have a better idea of which stuff to bring up and which stuff not to bring up. But hey, it should be a little bit smoother as we go on. But hey, CJC in here, what's up, brother? But with that, guys, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here. Let's take a moment to, if you guys want to support what I'm doing over here, you can leave a like, share, subscribe, comment, leave a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify. Stuff like that goes a long way, and you'd be surprised the amount of people who don't do that sort of stuff. JC here says, "Oh my God, bye! Oh my God, bye, JC." And if for those who want to directly support the show, oh yeah, follow me on Twitter at TowerGangJose as well. Tag me and stuff for the morning show. If you want to kind of control what we cover on that show, I usually kind of take fan submissions for the sort of content we cover there. Yeah, or if you just want to ask me questions about whatever. God, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, also I did one thing I did want to mention at the beginning that I forgot in all my different caveats. If you want any of these threads, like if you can't find them or whatever, and you like I said, I'm Twitter at TowerGangJose, so you can hit me up, shoot me a DM, say, hey, I'm looking for part 3 or part 4, because I know that sometimes those might be hard to find. I mean, if you're not as familiar with using Twitter or whatever, or even if you are, just hunting these things down sometimes can be a pain in the butt. I have them all bookmarked, so if you do want them, I can send them to you. But like I said, they also will be in it. But if you're trying to jump ahead of this series, to the ones out there, let me know. I'll send them to you. But for those who want to support the show kind of directly in the best way possible, really, via money, that goes a long ways. You can go to patreon.com/NoWayJose2020, and that way you can directly support the show. I get it if you can't. I'm never going to give anyone crap for that. I try to do my best to not really keep it so you guys get any content. Maybe just give minor incentives to provide money, such as at the $2 level, you get access to early episodes, much exactly like this one. I'm shooting to have usually have about 4 behind the paywall at a time, so I do 1 to 2 episodes a week. So you have weeks of paywalled content that you'll have access to. You also will get a priority for the call-ins for me and Austin's weekly call-in show, or live call-in show, which is already dead at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. And also you can add free RSS feed, so you get all those perks just for the low level of $2. The highest level is my sponsors. I read them off every episode. It's a big shout out to them, and it's a big thank you for supporting what I do. And my co-host in Tower Gang at Tower Gang Tobe, also at Abrogate D's at ZOVRACK at _Infazil, Tim Tuttle at John Cluebold, and we have Will Bell, Delicious Blueberry Rabbit Eye Wine, then big fan of the show Torme, and at INWARD Lover. With that, guys, we're going to go get out of here. I appreciate everyone who showed up for this, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Definitely go check out the thread and try to get ahead of it. I mean, hell, if you do enjoy this, boost it. Go give it a boost. Go over, give Wendy a follow, give a like, retweet. If you have any questions. Well, actually, she said to hold off. But I mean, whatever, comments. She might, I don't know, maybe ask a question anyways. Who knows? Maybe she'll answer. But with that, guys, we're going to get out of here. Love you all. See the patrons tomorrow when we do another one of these. Deuces.